If you're seeing this, it isn't random. You were meant to be still today. Not tomorrow, not someday when the noise quiets down today. Because this moment is your final invitation before the next loop of your timeline begins, before the probabilities around you collapse into form again. What you do with this pause, this sliver of awareness between breaths, determines which version of reality you'll continue living in. You might think that stillness means inactivity, but what if stillness is the most potent form of motion the universe knows? What if right now the field around you is waiting for you to stop moving long enough for it to rearrange itself in your favor? The reason you were drawn to this message has less to do with chance and more to do with resonance. Somewhere in you there's a frequency that remembers the original rhythm of your being, the one before deadlines, before constant alerts, before the mind learned to run faster than your breath. The Quantum Zeno Effect is more than a physics concept. It's the mirror of what's happening to you every day. It describes how observation can freeze motion, how awareness itself can hold a particle in place. Most people experience this unconsciously, stuck in repeating loops because they keep observing their past with the same emotional charge, the same stories, the same breath pattern. And as long as they keep observing life through that lens, the same frame keeps replaying. But here's the quiet secret: that same principle that keeps you trapped can set you free. The Quantum Zeno Effect doesn't discriminate. Observation can halt decay, or it can halt momentum. When used consciously, it becomes your doorway out of the loop. Imagine for a moment that reality is a river flowing around you. Every thought, every reaction, every rush to fix something sends ripples across that surface. The more frantic the movement, the murkier the reflection. But the instant you stop completely deliberately, something extraordinary happens. The water clears. The reflection stabilizes. The field, seeing its own image mirrored in your stillness, begins to reorder itself in coherence. Today is your chance to let that coherence emerge. You've been running on fragments of attention scattered across 1,000 unfinished moments. You check the clock, scroll the screen, chase the next thing, and the field reflects exactly that fragmentation, repetition, dissonance. Stillness isn't withdrawal from the world. It's the recalibration of your frequency within it. It's the act of returning to the observer's seat, the place from which all change originates. So if you've been feeling time bend strangely today, or sensing a pressure that feels like both exhaustion and anticipation, understand this: it's not burnout, it's a threshold. The quantum field is giving you one more opportunity to pause the old narrative before it crystallizes again. One breath of full awareness could shift the probability of everything that follows. What if this is that breath? What if this is the instant you stop rehearsing your past and begin observing your future into being? Stay still for these next moments, because stillness is not the absence of motion. It's motion observed so clearly that it becomes creation itself. You were meant to be still today, because in that stillness the entire universe finally has room to move through you. You keep wondering why life feels like déjà vu, why the same conversations repeat in different faces, why opportunities slip through the same invisible cracks, why no matter how much you plan or strive, you end up circling back to the same emotional landscape. It isn't bad luck. It's a feedback loop built from observation. Every human being lives inside an invisible mechanism: stimulus breath, meaning reaction proof. The external world presents a trigger, an email, a tone of voice, a memory. And before you know it, your body responds. The breath tightens, the pulse shifts, and the nervous system broadcasts we're in danger again. That single breath anchors a story. Meaning crystallizes around it. I'm not enough. They don't respect me. I always have to struggle. From that meaning comes action, and action generates evidence. The loop closes. Reality mirrors back what you already believed, and the cycle continues. Most people try to break the cycle at the surface. They change jobs, relationships, routines, yet the same pattern reemerges in new form. Because the mechanism doesn't live outside, it lives in the microseconds between perception and breath. The moment a stimulus arises, your body unconsciously replays a familiar frequency. The field doesn't judge that repetition as wrong. It simply obeys. The quantum field is like a mirror with perfect memory. It keeps reflecting the most frequently observed pattern until a new observer shows up. That observer isn't someone else. It's the version of you that's willing to pause. Imagine standing in a hall of mirrors. You've been trying to rearrange reflections by touching the glass, moving endlessly from one mirror to another. But the images don't change because you never realize you're the source being reflected. This is the crisis humanity faces now, not an economic crisis, not a political one, but a perceptual one. The modern world has trained us to identify so completely with movement and reaction that we've forgotten how to inhabit stillness. We mistake motion for evolution, noise for truth, and reaction for choice. In doing so, we become participants in our own confinement. This perceptual crisis is subtle. It doesn't feel like imprisonment. It feels like busyness. You wake or reach for the device, inhale shallowly, scroll through data points disguised as meaning. Each flick of the thumb is another act of observation, another quantum measurement reinforcing an identity. I am the one who reacts. The universe, ever faithful to your definition, organizes reality to match. The longer you observe from that fragmented state, the more your life resembles static, the same patterns frozen under different lighting. The irony is that the very awareness keeping you trapped is the key to your release. The Quantum Zeno Effect tells us that observation can freeze a system's evolution. If you keep observing yourself as anxious, struggling, or behind the wave of possibility collapses into that outcome again and again. But if you can observe the observation itself, if you can become aware of awareness, the loop begins to dissolve. Awareness. Observing awareness is like light meeting its reflection. It doesn't reinforce the old pattern. It renders it transparent. Right now, most of your attention is consumed by the surface movements of life. You're watching the waves crash and forgetting the still ocean beneath. Each thought is a wave, each emotional reaction a crest. You've become so hypnotized by the turbulence that you no longer feel the vastness holding it. That vastness is the true you, the observer. The crisis occurs when you identify with the turbulence instead of the depth. Let's look at this mechanism more clearly. You experience a trigger, someone criticizes you. The body tenses, breath shortens, a story appears. They don't value me. That story sparks emotion, anger, or hurt, which leads to behavior, withdrawal, confrontation, or silence. The outcome produces evidence. See, they always treat me this way. The mind records it as truth. The next time a similar situation arises, your nervous system anticipates it before it happens, broadcasting the same frequency. That broadcast interacts with the field and attracts the exact resonance needed to confirm it again. This is self-fulfilling physics, not punishment. To escape the loop, you don't need more control, you need precision awareness. Awareness so clear that the pattern loses its camouflage. When you catch yourself mid-reaction and say internally, the loop is beginning, you introduce a discontinuity in time. You stop the sequence before meaning cements into identity. In that microsecond, the quantum field holds infinite alternatives. It's the pause in the breath before the next exhale, the place where new probabilities wait to be chosen. But the perceptual crisis deepens when people interpret awareness as analysis. They think observing means thinking about the problem more, dissecting it into finer pieces. Yet analysis is still motion within the same system. True observation is stillness, a witnessing so total that the pattern can no longer maintain coherence. When you become truly still, the energy of the pattern disperses because it has lost the attention sustaining it. The field reorganizes not through force, but through absence of resistance. This is why today matters. The field around you is incredibly sensitive right now. The timelines are pliable, as if awaiting the faintest whisper of coherent awareness to determine their next form. If you continue to observe your life from the old emotional lens, the next cycle will mirror the last. But if you can pause even for a few breaths and observe without judging, something shifts. The rhythm slows. The loop weakens. The field listens. Stillness is not a reward for effort. It's the condition under which effort becomes unnecessary. When you remember that observation shapes matter, you realize every reaction is an act of creation. The question is not whether you're creating, only whether you're doing so consciously. The perceptual crisis ends when you remember that awareness, not time, is what moves you forward. Think of the universe not as empty space sprinkled with matter, but as a vast shimmering field of probabilities, an invisible ocean, whose surface ripples in response to your awareness. When physicists speak of the observer effect, they're describing something that mystics have felt for centuries. The universe waits for your attention to decide how it should appear. Yet this is not a commandment or a manipulation. It's a relationship. The field listens, but only when your presence is coherent enough to be heard. Coherence is what happens when your thoughts, emotions, and breath move in the same rhythm. Most of the time they don't. You think one thing, feel another, and breathe as if you're running from an invisible threat. That dissonance sends mixed signals into the field like a radio caught between stations. The field responds by reflecting uncertainty, delay, contradiction. But when your inner world synchronizes, when breath steadies the pulse, and the pulse aligns with the thought of peace, something exquisite occurs. You feel it before you understand it. It's the sensation that time has slowed, that space feels softer, that reality itself is exhaling with you. This is coherence. It's not about positive thinking or pretending things are fine. It's about resonance. In quantum terms, coherence means the wave patterns of your energy stop canceling each other out and start amplifying. In lived experience, it feels like ease. Your body's tension releases because it's no longer preparing for imagined emergencies. Your breath deepens because it finally trusts the moment. In that trust, the observer becomes visible. You're no longer a character lost in a plot. You're the consciousness watching the script rearrange itself one line at a time. Have you ever noticed that when you stop trying to fix something, it begins to resolve on its own? That when you finally stop chasing clarity, understanding quietly arrives? These moments aren't coincidence. They're coherence in action. The field reorganizes around your state of being, not your struggle to control it. The observer effect isn't a cosmic trick. It's the natural conversation between your attention and the quantum fabric. Every time you notice something, you're asking the universe, "What is this?" And the field replies as you perceive it. Imagine standing before an infinite number of doors, each one leading to a different potential timeline. Each door vibrates with a distinct emotional frequency. You don't open these doors with your hands. You open them with your state. Anger opens one door. Gratitude another. Fear leads to a corridor of repetition. Stillness opens the hall of clarity. Every emotional state is an access key, and your breath is the hand that turns the knob. You cannot think your way into a new reality, but you can breathe your way into one. The Quantum Zeno Effect reveals that what you repeatedly observe remains stable. In daily life, that means your familiar emotions anchor familiar worlds. You wake and immediately recall yesterday's worries. The moment you recall them, you reactivate their frequency. Observation collapses probability, and the field faithfully rebuilds the same landscape. It's not punishment, it's precision. The field mirrors the consistency of your focus. Change, therefore, begins not with effort, but with new observation. You can't fake it with affirmations you don't feel. The field doesn't respond to words. It responds to coherence. This is why being still today matters. When you become completely still, your observation deepens beyond thought. It moves from the surface mind into the embodied awareness that everything is energy in motion. In that stillness, the observer doesn't try to force new outcomes. It simply sees clearly, and clear, seeing changes everything. The moment you stop identifying with fear, fear no longer receives the observation needed to sustain itself. It dissolves like fog under sunlight. What remains is potential waiting for your next conscious gaze. At first, this may feel abstract, but you've already experienced it countless times. Remember a moment when you stared into a sunset or someone's eyes and everything else disappeared. For those few seconds, you weren't analyzing or planning. You were pure awareness. The body relaxed, time faded, and the world seemed to hum in gentle unity. That was the observer effect experienced emotionally. You didn't have to calculate it, you felt it. The quantum field responded to your coherence by offering beauty in return. Now imagine living from that state not by accident, but by choice. Imagine your breath steady enough to anchor awareness through any storm. When coherence becomes your resting frequency, manifestation stops being an effort and becomes a side effect of being awake. The Quantum Zeno Effect then works for you, not against you. Your sustained observation of peace keeps peace stable in your reality. Your consistent attention to gratitude keeps abundance coherent. Your steady witnessing of love keeps love repeating itself. But coherence doesn't mean you'll never feel chaos again. Chaos still visits because creation thrives on contrast. The difference is that you'll no longer confuse the temporary turbulence with your identity. You'll see it as a wave rising and falling in the same ocean of awareness. You are the ocean, not the wave. You are the observer, not the event. This understanding shifts life from struggle to artistry. In moments of stillness, the field tunes itself to your awareness like an instrument tuning to its musician. The strings are your breath. The melody is your presence. When both align, you realize that consciousness isn't trying to escape matter, it's trying to dance with it. The observer effect isn't a test, it's a partnership. You look and the universe responds. You breathe and existence breathes back. This is why being still isn't laziness, it's participation at the highest frequency possible. The field doesn't need you to do more. It needs you to see more, to observe, without panic, to trust the rhythm beneath the noise. Because the truth is simple, the universe isn't withholding anything from you. It's waiting for coherence to return. When it does, every particle, every probability, every timeline begins to organize itself around your calm, like iron filings aligning with a magnet. You become the steady center of creation, not through control, but through presence. Long before the word quantum existed, people already understood the sacred conversation between stillness and creation. The Egyptians spoke of ma'at, the principle of cosmic balance and truth, that kept the stars aligned, the Nile flowing and the heart of the human in harmony with the feather of eternity. They knew that imbalance wasn't evil. It was forgetfulness. Forgetting the still point around which all movement revolves. In their temples, initiates were taught that stillness was not silence, but precision. The moment Ra paused between breaths to renew the sun. That pause, that suspension between what was and what would be, was creation's heartbeat. To live in Ma'at was to breathe in rhythm with the cosmos. To fall from it was to forget one's own divine geometry. Imagine walking through an Egyptian sanctuary at dawn, the air still cool, the columns carved with symbols of breath and wing. Light enters slowly like consciousness awakening from the night. Every beam landing on the hieroglyphs reminds you that light and meaning were once the same language. The priests called breath the Ka, the vital essence linking heaven and earth. Each inhalation was an invocation, each exhalation an offering. The body was seen not as clay animated by chance, but as a vessel that translated invisible order into visible motion. Stillness was the way to align with the gods, not through worship, but through resonance. When you were still enough, the divine could recognize itself through you. Centuries later, in another corner of the world, the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, dissolving the last illusions of separation through ānāpānasati, mindfulness of breathing. He discovered what the physicists of our age now describe through probability equations, that observation alters reality. His language was simpler. He said that awareness of breath reveals impermanence, and through that revelation, suffering ends. The practice wasn't about control. It was about intimacy with the present moment. Every inhale was birth, every exhale death, and the space between them, liberation. In that still gap, he saw that all phenomena arise and dissolve without a solid self behind them. Awareness alone remains luminous and boundless. The Egyptians and Buddhists, separated by millennia, described the same principle with different metaphors: the field, the observer, and the still point, where form and formlessness meet. One used the language of balance and cosmic law, the other of emptiness and awakening. But the essence was identical. They both understood that true power lies not in motion, but in the poised awareness that holds motion. Consider the tree of life in Kabbalah. Its 10 spheres represent different aspects of creation, from pure potential at the top to material manifestation at the bottom. The path connecting them isn't a staircase upward. It's a circuit of returning awareness. The mystics taught that the breath travels this path, each moment ascending with inspiration, descending with release. Stillness occurs in the brief instant when the breath reaches the crown just before descending again. That pause is the gate to Kether, the crown of pure consciousness. Entering it, even for a breath's duration, was to glimpse eternity. They called this the Sabbath of the soul, a rest so profound that the universe itself seemed to exhale with you. Every tradition that endured carried this map of stillness hidden in its rituals. The Christian contemplatives spoke of the cloud of unknowing, the dark silence, where words fail and only awareness remains. The Taoists described wu-wei, effortless action arising from harmony with the Tao. The Sufis whirled until motion became stillness, realizing that turning at the center of their own axis was the dance of the cosmos itself. Across continents and centuries, stillness has always been the universal tongue of creation. If you could sit beside one of those ancient teachers, they wouldn't hand you theories. They'd hand you your own breath and say, "Watch this." They'd ask you to notice the space between inhale and exhale, the silence between heartbeats, the awareness between thoughts. They'd tell you that this space is the throne of the observer. The Egyptians would call it the Eye of Horus, the watchful consciousness that sees without interference. The Buddhists would call it Sati Pure, remembrance. The Kabbalists might call it Ruach, the breath of spirit that animates all form. And all of them would agree on one truth: the universe doesn't respond to the noise of desire, it responds to the purity of observation. When you enter stillness, you return to the original state of ma'at, balance, between seen and unseen. You stop being a fragment shouting into chaos, and become the silence that organizes the stars. The breath becomes your staff, your bridge, your instrument. Every inhale lifts you toward heaven. Every exhale roots you into earth. You become the axis where both meet. This is the forgotten technology of the soul. Long before machines measured frequency, humans could feel it in their bones. They built temples aligned with the solstices. Not for superstition, but because they knew matter itself listens to coherence. Stones sang when placed in harmony with the cosmos. Water reflected truth when the observer's heart was clear. The ancients understood what we now call the Quantum Zeno Effect. In their own language, that when consciousness holds a vibration with unwavering attention, reality holds it too. Stillness was never an escape from life. It was the maintenance of life's sacred rhythm. The Egyptian initiate the meditating monk, the mystic rabbi. All knew that when the observer becomes still, creation remembers how to move. Today the invitation is the same. You don't need to cross deserts or climb mountains to find the temple. You carry it in your lungs in the silence that follows every exhale. Every breath can be your initiation. Every pause can be your passage through the doorways the ancients guarded with song and symbol. When you breathe consciously now, you are joining a lineage older than civilization. You are standing in the same stillness that built pyramids, that awakened Buddhas, that wrote scriptures in the language of light. You are remembering what they knew, that being still is not stopping time. It's entering the space where time itself bows before awareness. Let's turn from the ancient temple to the living one you inhabit now, your body. The field isn't somewhere beyond you. It flows through you, responding to every breath, every subtle shift in awareness. The most powerful way to experience what you've heard so far isn't by understanding it, but by feeling it. So take a moment to settle wherever you are. Let your spine rest naturally upright, not stiff but dignified like a mountain that has learned the art of patience. Let your hands fall softly onto your lap. And now, without forcing anything, become aware of the movement of breath. Feel the air entering through your nose, cool, fine, almost invisible. Sense it descending into the chest, then deeper, expanding the ribs, the belly. Exhale through the mouth or nose, whichever feels more natural, letting the breath leave as if it knows exactly where to go. Do this 2 or 3 times without trying to breathe deeply. Let the breath guide you. This is the first layer: noticing. The simple recognition that breathing has always been happening whether or not you paid attention. That awareness marks the entrance into the observer's temple. Now as you breathe, begin to notice the space between the breaths. The slight pause after inhaling when the body is full yet still. Then the subtle emptiness after exhaling when the body is empty yet peaceful. Don't stretch these spaces, simply notice them. Those pauses are not absence, they are gateways. Each one is a direct encounter with the Quantum Zeno Effect. Conscious observation stabilizing what would otherwise flow unconsciously. By resting your attention in that gap, you are training the field to recognize coherence. This is not a breathing exercise for relaxation, though relaxation may occur. It's a practice in precision awareness. The instruction is simple: breathe naturally and observe completely. The moment you realize your mind has wandered, don't resist. Gently return to the breath. Each return is an act of creation, collapsing a new probability of awareness. If the mind comments this isn't working, simply observe the thought as if watching a bird fly across an open sky. You don't have to chase it or silence it. Observation itself is the silence. Now bring attention to your body's sensations. Notice the points of contact with the ground or chair. Feel gravity drawing you down and the breath lifting you upward. This meeting of opposites ground. And sky weight and expansion is the same principle that balanced the universe in Ma'at. You are participating in it right now with each inhale and exhale. Let's deepen the practice with what I call the 4 micro-protocols of stillness. These are gentle anchors to weave into daily life so the field recognizes your coherence consistently. The first is pause before response. Each time you feel triggered, breathe once before speaking or reacting. That single breath creates a 0.3 second quantum gap, enough space for the observer to return. In that space, the pattern loses power and clarity steps in. The second is awareness of posture. Notice your alignment in ordinary moments, standing in line, sitting at your desk, walking across a room. Let the crown of your head lift lightly, the shoulders release. Posture communicates coherence to the nervous system. The body teaches the mind that peace is safe. The third is soft gaze. Throughout the day, allow your vision to rest without focus for a few seconds. Instead of looking at something, look through it. This gentle seeing mirrors how the quantum field perceives without grasping, without labeling. You're training your awareness to witness rather than judge. The fourth is grateful exhale. Each time you release the breath, silently acknowledge, I'm letting life move through me. This subtle statement reorients your relationship with existence from control to collaboration. These micro-protocols seem small, but they're frequency regulators. They turn ordinary life into meditation in motion. Over time, they recondition the nervous system from survival into coherence. The body learns that safety isn't the absence of threat, but the presence of awareness. A brief reminder: this isn't a medical practice or therapy. If you experience physical discomfort or anxiety while exploring breath awareness, return to natural breathing or shift attention to a sensory anchor, the feeling of your feet on the floor, the air on your skin. Conscious observation is meant to soften, not strain. The field responds to gentleness, not force. You might notice subtle effects as you practice colors, appearing slightly brighter, sounds, seeming closer time, feeling less linear. These are not hallucinations. They are signs of synchronization. Your sensory system is beginning to align with the field's finer frequencies. You're perceiving reality from coherence instead of chaos. When you carry this awareness into daily life, even mundane moments transform. Standing in traffic becomes an opportunity to breathe consciously. A difficult conversation becomes a practice in pause. The simple act of washing your hands becomes a tactile reminder that water, like the quantum field, responds to intention. Stillness is not isolation, it's integration. The goal isn't to withdraw from life, but to re-enter it as the observer, awake-embodied, compassionate. Try this now. Inhale slowly, sensing the air touch the back of your throat, expanding your lungs. Pause. Then exhale as if releasing an entire timeline that no longer serves you. Feel the space after the exhale, vast, open, infinite. That space is home. You can return to it any time. Each time you do the field records, your coherence like a signature written in light. In this way, stillness becomes not a rare event, but a constant undercurrent. Every breath an instrument of creation. Every pause a temple door. You start to understand why the ancients built pyramids and stupas. They were external metaphors for the inner structure you're now building. Your awareness, your breath, your stillness, they are the architecture through which the infinite observes itself. And as this awareness grows, the field around you will begin to rearrange. You'll notice synchronicities, small harmonies and timing conversations that align as if planned. These are confirmations that the universe is listening. Keep this practice simple, humble, consistent. Stillness doesn't demand hours of silence. It asks for honesty. A few moments each day of true observation will recalibrate more than years of striving. Because in those moments you're not chasing the field, you are the field remembering itself. Something changes the moment you realize the stillness you've been cultivating isn't passive, it's catalytic. Until now, you've been trained to see yourself as the one reacting to circumstances, a figure moved by forces beyond control. But as the observer emerges, a shift occurs. You begin to see that your state creates your story, and your story shapes your strategy. The way you breathe, think, and feel determines which version of life crystallizes around you. This is the turning point, the transition from victim to creator. Every person has a story about why life is the way it is. I'm anxious because money is tight. I'm lonely because others don't understand me. I'm stuck because the world is unfair. But what if the equation runs in reverse? What if the state of consciousness, fear, loneliness, scarcity precedes the evidence? The field doesn't bring you proof and then decide how to make you feel. It mirrors your frequency so perfectly that the feeling becomes the cause of the outer form. The moment you understand this, your life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that responds to you. Let's translate this from concept to practice through 3 lived examples: money, relationships, and leadership. Imagine a person named Maya who feels trapped in financial scarcity. Each time she looks at her bank account, she feels her breath tighten, her stomach contract. That contraction sends a signal lack. The field interprets that signal literally because it has no sarcasm, no metaphor, only coherence. The more she observes her life from lack, the more situations appear to reinforce it. But one morning Maya decides to breathe before looking. She pauses, feels her feet, allows one full inhale and exhale, then opens her account. This time the numbers look the same, but her state is different. She observes from stillness, not from panic. That small difference alters the field's response. Opportunities she had previously overlooked start to appear. A conversation opens. A forgotten invoice clears. She hasn't forced abundance. She has become coherent with it. Now consider a relationship. Leo keeps repeating the same pattern: connection, misunderstanding, withdrawal. He blames his partner for being distant, unaware that his own breath mirrors the same pattern, short, defensive, held in the upper chest. Each argument is a replay of a nervous system caught in survival. One evening, Leo remembers the observer breath. As his partner speaks, he notices his urge to interrupt, to defend. Instead, he inhales gently through the nose, pauses, and exhales without words. In that silence, his partner's voice softens. Something in the field between them reorganizes. They're no longer two egos battling for recognition, but two frequencies aligning through awareness. The conversation doesn't just go better, it transforms their relationship template. Finally, imagine leadership. A woman named Arya runs a team under constant pressure. Deadlines, expectations, personalities colliding. She's effective but exhausted. Meetings feel like battlefields of invisible tension. Then one morning, before entering the conference room, she takes 3 coherent breaths. On the inhale, she silently repeats, "Observe." On the pause, she feels the space in her chest. On the exhale, she releases control. When she enters, something subtle but measurable changes. Her team senses it before words are spoken. The conversation that day becomes unexpectedly creative. New solutions emerge. Arya realizes she didn't lead through authority but through frequency. Her stillness became the organizing principle for the group field. These scenes may sound simple, yet they illustrate the most advanced quantum practice, aligning inner state before action. In each case, the person stopped feeding the old probability with reactive observation and allowed a new reality to stabilize. That is the Quantum Zeno Effect turned from trap to tool. When you observe fear repeatedly, you freeze fear. When you observe peace consistently, you stabilize peace. Awareness is the sculptor. Stillness is the chisel. But transformation isn't about pretending negative states don't exist. Creation requires contrast. What changes is your relationship to it. When pain arises, you no longer drown in it. You witness it as data energy requesting integration. The victim asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The creator asks, "What frequency is this revealing in me?" The victim tightens. The creator breathes. Here's the paradox. You don't become the creator by achieving some mystical enlightenment. You become the creator by remembering your original function, observation itself. The universe doesn't need you to perform miracles. It needs you to perceive coherently. The field is self-organizing. Your job is to provide clear measurement. When you see with love, life rearranges to express it. When you see with fear, it does the same. The responsibility is immense, yet beautifully simple. There's a quiet dignity in this shift. You stop demanding that others validate your worth because your worth becomes self-evident in the rhythm of your breath. You stop chasing purpose because your presence itself becomes purposeful. You stop trying to force progress because you realize awareness is progress. Let's anchor this turning point right now. Think of one area of your life where you felt powerless. Notice the sensations it evokes, perhaps tightness in the chest, heat in the face, a quickening pulse. Now, rather than analyzing it, breathe into it. Inhale through the nose, pause, exhale slowly. Imagine that with each breath you are shining a light into that space of powerlessness. You're not fixing it, you're observing it with compassion. That light of observation is the exact moment probability begins to shift. The field registers new coherence. As you practice this in small moments, the world around you begins to mirror the internal shift. The conversation that once triggered you becomes an invitation to presence. The financial pressure becomes a practice in trust. The leadership challenge becomes a demonstration of frequency. You move from reacting to reality, to composing it. That is the real awakening, not an escape from human experience, but a conscious participation in it. You realize that the observer isn't separate from life. It is life aware of itself. This understanding doesn't make you detached. It makes you profoundly compassionate. Because now you see that every other person, no matter how reactive, is simply another version of you who hasn't yet remembered their observer. This is the turning point, the day stillness stops being a refuge and becomes your foundation for creation. The day you recognize that peace isn't a reward for having things figured out. It's the frequency that allows life to figure itself out through you. The day you stop being the storm and start being its eye. What begins as an inward practice of breathing soon ripples outward into the shape of your entire life. You start to notice how coherence in one person invites coherence in others, how stillness itself becomes a kind of public art, an invisible sculpture carved in the medium of time. You stand in a crowded street, and though nothing around you changes, something in the atmosphere subtly aligns. The world senses when someone is not at war with themselves. That sensing is not mystical, it is human. Every species on this planet can feel resonance. A forest breathes differently when one tree burns. A room feels different when one heart softens. Your stillness, humble as it may seem, is an act of contribution. Dignity returns through this awareness. You realize that belonging isn't granted by satiety. It is inherent in existence. The same intelligence that spins galaxies and patterns snowflakes is quietly organizing your heartbeat. When you become still, you begin to hear that rhythm again. You sense that life isn't something happening to you, but through you. You stop measuring your worth by achievement and start experiencing it through alignment. This is not a philosophy to adopt, but a remembering of what your cells already know. Coherence is the language of creation. The human mind has been conditioned to seek meaning through accumulation of knowledge, possessions, validation. But the essence of meaning is subtraction. Each time you drop an unnecessary thought, each time you pause before speaking, each time you return to the breath, you subtract a layer of distortion. What remains is pure presence, luminous and self-sufficient. Meaning doesn't arise from grand gestures, but from intimate awareness. The way sunlight falls on a table, the way laughter echoes between friends, the way your breath meets the morning air. These are the scriptures of existence. Stillness doesn't erase action. It refines it. When you act from coherence, every gesture carries integrity. You might still pursue goals, build, create, lead, but the motive changes. It's no longer about proving worth or escaping fear. It's about expressing harmony. You begin to see that greatness is not measured by how many things you control, but by how many things can move freely around you without losing your center. In this understanding, compassion becomes inevitable, because when you live as the observer, you see the same awareness shining through every face. Even the people who challenge you become mirrors, showing where your frequency still trembles. The impulse to judge dissolves. You stop trying to win arguments and start transmitting coherence. When you listen deeply to another person without agenda, you enact the same principle as quantum observation. You stabilize their experience simply by being present with it. This is how love actually changes the world, not as sentiment, but as resonance. Think of stillness now as a civic virtue. A single coherent person walking through a city is quietly recalibrating the collective field. It doesn't require fame or influence. The silent presence of a balanced mind, a compassionate breath, a peaceful heart. These are acts of leadership far greater than rhetoric. In a culture addicted to acceleration, choosing stillness is a form of creative rebellion. It's saying, I refuse to be pulled from my own frequency. I choose to be the mountain. I choose to let storms pass without shaking my foundation. Philosophically, stillness is the proof of belonging. To be still is to acknowledge that you are already included in the unfolding of the universe. You don't have to earn your place in it. Your breath is the membership card. When you breathe consciously, you're participating in the same pattern that moves the tides and turns the planets. You become both infinitesimal and infinite, one breath in the cosmos, and the cosmos in one breath. This realization dissolves loneliness at its root. You may live alone, but you're never apart. Every inhale pulls the world into you. Every exhale returns you to the world. Meaning evolves from this intimacy. You no longer seek it in achievements or doctrines, but in direct relationship with reality. The field ceases to be an abstract idea. It becomes your constant companion, the quiet pulse beneath everything. When you speak, it listens. When you doubt, it holds. When you rest in stillness, it sings. This dialogue never ends because consciousness doesn't end. Even in moments of confusion or grief, something deeper remains untouched. That still awareness watches every rise and fall, unbroken, unblamed. So what does it mean to live from here? It means acting without leaving yourself. It means allowing every decision, every word, every silence to emerge from the coherence you've cultivated. It means understanding that agency and humility are not opposites, they are reflections. The more clearly you sense your creative power, the more reverence you feel for the intelligence sustaining it. You begin to live as an artist of the invisible shaping energy through attention, building futures through stillness. If someone were to ask you now, what are you becoming? The answer might surprise them. You're not becoming more successful or spiritual or enlightened. You're becoming more real. Not the version of reality imposed by conditioning, but the living truth vibrating beneath it. You're becoming a vessel clear enough for consciousness to see itself through you. That is the essence of dignity, not superiority, but transparency. And perhaps that is the quiet revelation this age needs most, that stillness is not withdrawal from the world, but full participation in it. When you breathe coherently, you are voting for order over chaos, compassion over confusion, presence over distraction. The observer's breath becomes the planet's heartbeat. The silence in you becomes the sound of life remembering itself. Before we part, I want you to experience this not as information, but as transmission. Take a moment now to sit as you are. No adjustments, no performance. Let the world continue its motion while you become the still point within it. Feel the ground beneath you, the weight of your body reminding you that you belong here. Close your eyes if that feels natural, or soften your gaze if you prefer to stay open. We'll take 3 coherent breaths together, not as a technique, but as a ritual of remembering. First breath. Inhale gently through the nose. Feel the air enter cool and pure. Let it reach the chest, then the belly. Pause. Sense the life force suspended in stillness. Exhale slowly through the mouth, releasing tension you didn't even know you carried. Notice how the mind quiets without force. Second breath, inhale again, but this time imagine drawing in light from the field itself, the same radiance that once filled temples and forests alike. Let that light settle in your heart. Pause. In this gap, the field recognizes you. Exhale gently, offering that light back to the world, trusting it will reach where it's needed most. Third breath, inhale with awareness of every atom conspiring to keep you alive. Pause at the top where everything stops, yet everything moves. Exhale through gratitude, silently acknowledging I am the observer. Feel what that means. You're not separate from the flow, you are the flow aware of itself. Now, in the silence that follows, a single word will rise within you. Don't search for it, let it find you. It may be peace, trust, remember, create love, or something only you can name. Whatever the word that is, your frequency, key. Whisper it once softly, then say within, I choose to, your word, as the observer. The field hears that. It's not a command. It's a declaration of coherence, a marker of intention in the quantum fabric. You can return to this ritual anytime, before a conversation, before sleep, before entering a new day. 3 breaths, 1 word, 1 choice. That's enough to reset your timeline. The field doesn't need elaborate ceremony. It listens to consistency, to sincerity, to stillness. Each repetition strengthens the signal, aligning more of your life to that single chosen frequency. You might notice subtle confirmations afterward, a chance encounter, a piece of music, a moment of synchronicity that echoes your word back to you. These are not coincidences. They are the field's way of responding. Smile when they arrive. You're witnessing direct feedback from consciousness to consciousness. If this experience resonated with you, you're not just a viewer, you're part of this frequency. Subscribe to this channel not for content, but for coherence. Each time you return, you strengthen a collective field of awareness, a community of observers remembering their still point together. The algorithms of the universe, like those of technology, respond to participation. Every like, every comment, every share is a ripple expanding coherence further into the world. Before we close, one final reminder: stillness isn't escape. And these reflections are not medical or psychological prescriptions. They are educational tools for remembering your natural rhythm. You already possess the intelligence to regulate your energy safely. Let gentleness be your guide. Now breathe once more without instruction. Just be. Feel the space within you where breath, body, and awareness meet. That intersection is the gateway through which infinite potential enters form. Carry it into your day like a hidden temple inside your chest. Let your stillness travel through words, through touch, through the way you listen. And when life rushes at you, when the noise grows loud and your thoughts scatter, remember this simple practice: pause, breathe, choose your word, then whisper again, I choose to your word, as the observer. In that single moment, the universe pauses with you and every probability waits for your next exhale. You were meant to be still today. The last chance wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. Because stillness isn't the end of the story. It's the point where the story begins to write itself through you. Subscribe to this frequency, your home,